The stories start with a narration that delves into the origins of humanity and witches. It is said that God created humans alongside witches and bestowed his power upon these witches. God tasked the witches with guiding the powerless humans, and in the spirit of friendship, the witches agreed to help humanity. However, this once strong friendship has crumbled in the present day. Humans have developed a deep-seated hatred for witches and have started to mercilessly hunt them down, seeking their complete eradication for reasons shrouded in mystery. This hostile behavior has sparked anger and resentment among the witches, who wish ill upon the humans. In the outskirts of Rydia Empire, a young human boy named Adnis embarks on a journey with his mentor and companion, Chloe. Chloe is a witch, and as they've traveled a considerable distance, Adnis begins to feel pain in his legs. Annoyed, Adnis turns to her and questions if she's even listening to him. Chloe urges him to silence, as she is preoccupied with determining their exact location. Unfortunately, she struggles to do so. Frustrated by Chloe's inability to pinpoint their location, Adnis wonders aloud why she doesn't use her magic to find it instead of wasting time. Chloe, however, is determined to conserve her magical energy and opts to rely on a map. She firmly warns Adnis to stop complaining. While Chloe scrutinizes the map in an attempt to discern their whereabouts, Adnis discreetly uses his smartphone to determine their location. When he proudly announces that he has located them, Chloe turns to see him using the device. She reacts angrily, scolding him for employing this strange machine, which could potentially lead their pursuers to them. Adnis clarifies that the device he used is called a smartphone, and he constructed it himself, ensuring that it is untraceable by their enemies. He dismisses the use of a traditional map in this day, an age as outdated, and promises to make a smartphone for Chloe in the future. However, she interprets this as an insult and delivers a forceful blow to his head. Now that they have finally identified their location, Chloe instructs Adnis to get up. However, at this moment, Adnis becomes increasingly frustrated by the constant need to flee from their pursuers. In response, Chloe reveals her identity as a witch and explains that the deep-seated hatred humans hold against witches leaves her with no choice but to run from them. Chloe goes on to clarify that blending into human cities and residing far from human towns has made her more of a ninja than a witch. She attempts to inject some humor into the situation by framing it as a joke, but Adnis doesn't seem to find it amusing. Observing his lack of amusement, Chloe taps him gently and urges them to continue their journey. She sternly instructs him not to speak until they've crossed the border, emphasizing the need to find a place where witches are tolerated, allowing them to reclaim a peaceful and content life. Chloe also reveals that they must find a school for Adnis to attend, enabling him to live more freely. However, Adnis immediately contradicts her, reminding her of her own directive not to speak until they've crossed the border. Angrily, he asserts that he doesn't care about school and would rather continue his studies under her tutelage. Oddly, Chloe interprets this as a declaration of affection from Adnis, assuming that he is attracted to women like her. Adnis loudly protests, vehemently denying any romantic interest in her. Seeing Chloe so elated by this misinterpretation, Adnis wonders how she can remain so cheerful and unfazed. He openly expresses his deep loathing for the Rhea Empire, primarily due to their hostility towards witches. In his frustration, Adnis contemplates using magic to eradicate all humans. At this point, Chloe snaps back to reality and asks Adnis to repeat what he just said. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of some soldiers, who approach them with great speed. Upon spotting Chloe, the soldiers prepare for an attack. Adnis steps forward to shield Chloe, but she intervenes, stating that he lacks the experience for combat. Instead, she takes the lead in protecting him, employing her ice magic to freeze all the soldiers, leaving them encased in ice cubes. In the palace, Emperor Goth of the Rhea Empire receives news of his soldiers' failure to capture the witch Chloe. The report reveals that Chloe is a high-ranking witch who wields powerful magic and had thwarted the squadron sent to apprehend her. Before the messenger can finish his report, he is abruptly silenced by the Emperor's guards, who bring him to the ground. However, Emperor Goth intervenes, ordering the man to bring Chloe directly to him. He is determined to ensure that Chloe does not escape. Meanwhile, back with the soldiers frozen in ice, Chloe calls on Adnis, urging him to continue their journey. Adnis is upset with her for not allowing him to take any action. He expresses his frustration, claiming that he could have handled the soldiers on his own if given the chance. Angrily, he questions why he should bother studying magic if he isn't allowed to use it. Chloe explains that he lacks experience with magic, but Adnis disagrees. To prove his point, he summons a large sword, asserting that a student of hers cannot be inexperienced. When Chloe ignores his protests, Adnis accuses her of preventing him from fighting against humans because he is human like the soldiers. He believes that she refrains from using her magic to protect humans despite their mistreatment of her. He notices her suppressing her emotions to avoid confrontation with humans and not allowing him to fight them. He confesses that he can't bear the thought of not being able to protect her any longer, which brings him to tears. Upon hearing Agnes's heartfelt confession, Chloe rushes to him and embraces him tightly as they share a moment of comfort. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers encased in ice reveals that he has synchronized their location. Without delay, Chloe and Agnes begin to float in midair, leaving Agnes bewildered. Chloe, on the other hand, seems to understand what's happening and is amazed that the humans have achieved what she referred to as a long-distance physical transfer system, a feat not even the witches have accomplished. They continue to float upward, holding each other's hands, and make a promise to stay together no matter what. Unbeknownst to them, this transfer system is based in space, and it is transporting Chloe and Agnes to the capital. In the capital city, the Emperor steps forward without his crown, wanting to address his people as a fellow human rather than their ruler. He shares a history of the kingdom, explaining how they have always relied on magic, particularly from witches, to protect them during natural disasters and plagues. Over time, this dependence has led to a deep reverence for witches, but also a fear of their powerful magic, which seemed superior to human ability. The Emperor finds this inequality unjust and questions whether the people should have to submit to witches and beg for their assistance. He asserts that humans should be able to live with their dignity intact. The Emperor goes on to highlight the various technological advancements that humans have achieved, demonstrating that they are not as powerless as witches may have thought. He emphasizes that even without magic, humans have learned to manipulate and control the natural world using their own strength. Inspired by his words, the Emperor rallies the people, declaring that the time has come to rid the kingdom of witches and prove that humans are the ultimate rulers. This passionate speech brings joy to the crowd. However, their moment of celebration is interrupted by a sudden arrival. A bright light touches down, revealing the presence of Chloe and Agnes, who have been transported there. Chloe immediately recognizes the Emperor, while Agnes, fueled by anger, attempts to strike the Emperor using his magic and urges Chloe to escape. Unfortunately, he is quickly restrained by the guards. As Agnes grapples with the guards, Chloe threatens to use her ice magic to annihilate the humans if they don't release Agnes. She demands the Emperor to release Agnes. However, Chloe's magic suddenly fails due to a magic photon suppression device created by the Empire, rendering her powerless. The Emperor takes advantage of Chloe's vulnerability and forcibly removes her clothing. Shockingly, some people in the crowd begin taking photographs of her. Agnes, overwhelmed with anger and desperation, attempts to come to Chloe's aid but is held back further. Seeing Agnes's reaction, the Emperor orders the guards to kill him to protect him from any potential retaliation by Chloe. Desperate to save Agnes, Chloe falsely claims that she had kidnapped him and made him her slave. She pleads with the Emperor to do as he pleases with her but to spare Agnes's life. Agnes tries one last time to use his magic, but it fails him, leaving him in tears as he watches the Emperor prepare to execute Chloe. Just as the king is about to shoot Chloe, she expresses her gratitude to Agnes for everything they shared and is about to declare her love for him. However, the king shoots her in the head, and another guard fires multiple shots at her. Witnessing this brutal scene, Agnes cries out loudly, reflecting on the happiness they had experienced together. The people in the crowd rejoice upon seeing Chloe killed, and one of the guard beheads her, the king displaying her severed head as a symbol of their perceived victory over the witches. As the story unfolds, it becomes evident that the failure to heed God's advice about fostering friendship between humans and witches may lead to destruction for the kingdom. 10 years later, in an internment camp within the Rhea Empire, many young girls find themselves confined, their necks, hands, and legs bound by restraints. Inside this prison, two girls engage in a heated dispute over a piece of bread. The quarrel escalates until a girl named Doroko decides to step in, urging them to cease their altercation. In response, one of the feuding girls snatches the bread from Doroko's hand, suggesting she mind her own business next time. Nearby, another girl named Annie approaches Doroko, curious about why she intervened and had her food taken. Doroko, however, carries herself as a free-spirited individual and reassures Annie not to dwell on the matter. Moments later, the girls gather in a corner, and Annie begins discussing the ongoing conflicts within the Empire, fueled by the advanced technologies they possess. She laments how they were initially told that once the witches were gone, humanity would thrive, but it seems to have turned out quite differently. As she grows emotional and tears well up, Doroko endeavors to lighten the mood by narrating a humorous conversation between a stuffed doll of a knight and a girl prisoner. Her aim is to make Annie laugh, and it works. Soon after, some guards arrive at the camp, inquiring about prisoner number 218, which happens to be Anna's number. Initially, no one claims the number until Doroko stands up, falsely identifying herself as the owner by switching Anna's number with hers. Consequently, she is taken to a room where she encounters Chief Warden Palpal, the overseer of the camp. In this room, the warden instructs her to undress so they can thoroughly examine her body, emphasizing that this is to avoid offending the Lord they serve. He explains that the people's blood tax supports the camp, making it necessary for her to contribute as well. Doroko is horrified to find lifeless bodies in the room, which she finds deeply unsettling. Suddenly, the warden approaches her and forcibly pulls her by the neck restraint. He mentions how the Rhea Empire used its scientific prowess to defeat the witches. During this encounter, he attempts to take pictures with Doroko while dragging her along with the neck restraint, intending to send them to headquarters. Seizing an opportunity, Doroko bites the warden's finger, snatches his phone, and makes a run for it. While fleeing, she endeavors to use the phone to unlock the prison cells, but realizes it won't work unless she imitates the warden's voice. As she succeeds in opening all the prison doors, chaos ensues among the guards. Doroko reaches a heavily secured room with a massive door that only responds to her commands via the phone. Inside this room, she is astounded to discover a colossal machine. Her wonderment is cut short when guards apprehend her. Some of them attempt to lock the prison doors from within the control room, but the gigantic machine unexpectedly activates, shrouding the area in thick fog. When the fog dissipates, a young man is revealed, breaking free from the chains that had held him within the machine, his expression filled with anger and determination. The story goes on as Adonis manages to break the chains, and we see that the guard starts to get really worried. One of the guards thinks they should tell their higher-ups about it, but the other guard quickly dismisses that idea, saying that just saying sorry won't fix it. Adonis immediately jumps on one of them and takes them down right away. Then, one of the guards tries to pull out a gun, but Adonis kills him with a throwing knife. Another guard attempts to shoot him, but Adonis blocks the shot and uses the guard's own gun to shoot them. Doro gets scared as Adonis approaches her, but instead of hurting her, he ends up setting her free and walk away. The scene changes, and we see the guards panicking because all the prisoners have been set free. Meanwhile, at the National Security Bureau or NSB, Senior Director Yamato gets a report about the situation. He tells his executive, Oukoku, to handle it and allows him to use powerful weapons. Oukoku happily agrees, saying he will maintain peace with his great authority. Yamato's sister, Yuki, is not happy with Yamato's relaxed attitude. She reminds him that they play a crucial role in keeping order in the empire. Oukoku leaves without paying much attention to her words. Yuki becomes angry and threatens to harm him, but Yamato reassures her, mentioning that there's a reason he's an executive. Back at the prison, the warden is in a panic because Adonis has escaped. He wonders how Doro managed to open Adonis's cell because even the warden's phone shouldn't have had the clearance to release him. To make things worse, it seems that Adonis's magic pen has also gone missing. We find Adonis outside after being locked up for 10 years. He decides to use his magic, something he hasn't done in a long time. Adonis shoots his gun and summons a massive bullet that smashes into a building. He's getting ready to harm everyone in the city. At the same time, Oukoku is on a mission to deal with the prisoners who were set free. Unfortunately, he can't find Adonis and reports this back. Yamato, who is in charge, gets word about the building that was attacked by a giant bullet. He decides to head there but first takes care of the warden. The scene changes, and we see that Doro has also managed to escape. When she sees the destruction Adonis is causing, she feels guilty, thinking it's her fault for setting him free. As Adonis walks through the streets, he grapples with his desire for revenge, even though his master wouldn't have wanted it. To create more chaos, he summons a giant robot and goes on a rampage. Meanwhile, an officer receives a report about this situation, but dismisses it as a prank. Suddenly, a car crashes through a wall, and the driver is shocked by the devastation. The officer realizes that Adonis is destroying the city and declares in anger that he will kill the emperor today. Soldiers report to Yamato and Yuki about the giant attacking the city. Yamato tries to contact the emperor, but the soldiers reveal that all messages are blocked by the queen because the emperor is ill. In response, Yamato uses his authority to declare a state of emergency. Yamato and Yuki watch from a distance and realize that Adonis is behind the attack. Yuki notes that the giant is using magic. Yamato thinks they can stop him using their magic suppression device, but he's reminded that it hasn't been used in 10 years, so it might not work properly. So, he asks Yuki to handle the situation. As a safety measure, they instruct everyone to evacuate immediately. Tanks are deployed, and they open fire on the giant, but their shots keep missing Adonis. In return, Adonis smashes a building and hurls debris at his adversaries. We learn that for a person to use magic, they must use summoning magic, which involves understanding and systematizing magical mechanisms. Even during his 10-year imprisonment, Adonis practiced it in his mind. He believes that all the citizens who benefited from his master's death are equally guilty, and he plans to wipe out the entire country as retribution. In a bid for an eye, he summons 2 Gatling guns and starts firing at everyone. However, despite getting his revenge, Adonis doesn't find it satisfying, and he breaks down, shedding tears. Oukoku sees that Adonis is held by the giant and quickly tells Yamato. Yamato commands everyone to take action. They identify the person in danger as Adonis, who is a witch apprentice. Fighter jets receive the order to target the giant's hand. They confirm the target and launch missiles at the giant, which causes significant damage and almost harms Adonis. Yamato instructs them to keep attacking, leading to further damage and casualties. Amid the chaos, we notice a young boy calling for his deceased mother. He realizes a building is about to fall on him, but then Doro appears and saves him. She feels responsible for the chaos and asks the boy to move to safety with another woman. Doro then rushes towards Adonis, intending to stop him. While this is happening, the giant has been destroyed, and Adonis is lying on the ground, feeling a bit worn out. Then, a group of soldiers descends from a helicopter. The scene shifts to the Imperial Castle, where we find the Emperor lying in bed. He's curious about how long he's been asleep. The Queen reassures him that it's only been 30 minutes, and encourages him to rest a bit more, mentioning that the Empire is stable because of his efforts. The Emperor appreciates her kindness and attributes the Empire's success to her support. However, when he tries to get up, he starts coughing up blood. We come to understand that he's suffering from an incurable illness. He wonders if it's a punishment from a higher power, but he doesn't regret his past actions. He explains that he built a highly advanced civilization, but had to eliminate the neighboring witches, believing it was necessary for the progress of humanity. According to him, magic would have hindered human advancement in the new era. The Queen advises him to rest because it might be his last chance. The Emperor once more praises the Queen for her unwavering support. Adonis is on a rampage, taking out soldiers. Yamato watches this unfold from a control room as the soldiers are wiped out. He receives a report about a civilian approaching Adonis, which confuses him. The scene changes, and we see Adonis holding a soldier by the neck. The soldier is shocked and regrets not killing Adonis 10 years ago, to which Adonis agrees, saying he wished they had too. Suddenly, Doro arrives and pleads with Adonis to stop. Adonis recognizes her from the prison camp but is furious that she calls the soldiers innocent. He left her behind because she was a prisoner, but now he sees all humans as his enemies. Doro asks him to stop, claiming that his master wouldn't want this. When Adonis hears his master's name, he gets confused. Doro insists that she knows how important she was to him, but Adonis is angry and grabs her, telling her not to mention his master's name with her foul mouth. Adonis questions if she's just a distraction created by humans who fight dirty, like how they killed his master. He believes that all witches were killed, but Doro informs him that some survived and apologizes for not helping. Adonis doesn't think her apology will bring back his master, but Doro explains that they can bring Chloe back. Adonis dismisses her words as a joke and threatens to kill anyone who gets in his way. She agrees to die if that's what satisfies him, and she's glad she met him. This reminds Adonis of Chloe once more, and he breaks down in tears. Adonis is about to reach out to Doro when she gets shot by a bullet. It turns out to be Oukoku, who can't believe he missed. The story continues with a big explosion in a burning house. In the midst of the chaos, there's a scared young girl named Doroko. She's witnessing a group of officers harming and even killing people. Then, we see Mia coming to her, embracing her from behind. Doroko is baffled and asks Mia what's happening. Mia explains that humans suddenly turned on them, attacking and hurting their kind. Doroko remembers that they were getting along well recently, even helping a man named Mr. Tom with his sickness by going to the city. Doroko suggests using magic to defend themselves, but Mia sadly reveals that they can't because the humans are using a device that stops magic. Doroko thinks Ophelia might have answered, and Mia advises her to flee and tell Ophelia what's happening. Doroko is afraid to go alone and proposes that they go together, but Mia encourages her, calling her kind and brave. She advises Doroko to follow the North Star to reach Ophelia Palace, a place they went to during the fertility festival. Mia gives Doroko a doll and tells her to run fast, making sure nobody catches her. Doroko sets out, crossing mountains to reach Ophelia. She clutches the doll as she goes. Meanwhile, human guards surround Mia and tragically take her life. In the current moment, Adonis is desperate to save Doroko and bring Khlo back to life. He pleads with Doroko not to die and asks her for guidance. But before she can share her thoughts, soldiers suddenly open fire, and Doroko tragically loses her life. Adonis is left in shock, feeling that simply knowing how to bring Khlo back to life isn't enough. The soldiers report Doroko's death to their leader, Oukoku. In response, Adonis decides to protect himself using his magic. He creates a barrier around him to shield against the incoming bullets. The soldiers try to harm him, but their bullets are halted by the magical barrier. Adonis then uses his powers to redirect the bullets back at the soldiers, leading to the demise of all but one. Oukoku attempts to shoot Adonis, but he's no match for Adonis's magic. Adonis seizes the bullet and amplifies its size, sending it back at Oukoku, ultimately defeating him. Adonis is convinced that humans are no match for magic, and he swears not to let them live in peace, especially after Khlo's death. He vows to wipe out every single one of them and make them feel the same despair that Khlo experienced. Meanwhile, Yamato urges Yuki to hurry up with the activation of a device she stands before. Yuki is amazed by the device, which was once used to defeat witches, and she believes it can suppress magic. Yuki hopes that by activating it, she can finally be of use to her brother. She urges her companions to speed up the activation process. However, their efforts are interrupted by the director of the National Science Bureau, Theta Samansta. Theta informs Yuki that she cannot activate the device. Confused, Yuki questions this decision and decides to contact her brother, Yamato. Yamato is puzzled as to why Yuki hasn't activated the device yet. As they talk, he realizes that Theta is on the other side of the phone call. Theta explains that they cannot activate the magic photon suppression device because of certain particles it emits, which are not fully understood by science. Yamato is curious about the significance of these particles, and Theta asks him if he's familiar with the term human cellular dysfunction disease. Yamato recalls that it's an illness that afflicted Soul soldiers who participated in witch hunts a decade ago. Theta suggests that these particles from the magic photon suppression device may have affected the human body and led to this disease. She emphasizes that the device kills cells, which alarms Yamato because he's hearing this for the first time. Theta clarifies that the reason he hasn't heard about it is because they kept it quiet. She explains that without witches to restore the natural environment, the atmosphere that would cleanse these harmful particles has disappeared, and nature is suffering. As things stand, if a human body is exposed to substantial amounts of these particles, it could be utterly destroyed. Yamato is shocked by this revelation and begins to understand that this may be the cause of the king's illness. Yamato observes that Adonis is still taking down his soldiers. Theta advises Yuki to leave now that she knows the truth, but Yuki disregards the warning and proceeds to activate the device. She believes that the immediate threat of magic is more urgent than worrying about a potential illness. However, Theta calls for a retreat and rushes to stop Yuki. Yuki successfully activates the device, rendering Adonis unable to use his magic. Those in the control room notice this, and Yamato seeks an explanation from Director Theta, wondering how Yuki managed it. Theta downplays it, and Yamato questions if Yuki was responsible. Theta urges him to focus on the current threat and asks how they can defeat their opponent without using the device. Yamato reaffirms his duty to eliminate those who harm the Empire. Theta identifies their enemy as the Radia Empire, proclaiming it as indestructible. Yamato orders his units to charge at Adonis. Adonis, unable to use his powers, reaches for a quill. A soldier moves in to kill him, but then a building collapses nearby. After the dust settles, Adonis emerges with the head of the soldier in her hand. Shocked, the other soldiers witness her gruesome victory, believing the witch's apprentice is dead. They congratulate the soldier who killed Adonis. Observers in the control room hail this as the power of the Radia Empire. Yamato contacts his forces and expresses gratitude for their efforts in defeating the witch's apprentice. He reminds them not to celebrate just yet, as they need to collect Adonis's body and assess the damage across the city. Yamato instructs everyone to coordinate with the rescue crews and assist the victims. He notices that the soldier who killed Adonis is quite young, prompting some soldiers to explain that she's a new recruit of the armored foot soldiers. Yamato decides there's no need to investigate further and asks the soldier to check on Director Theta and Vice Director Yuki. In the next scene, we see that Theta and Yuki are being taken for medical treatment. The scene shifts to the king delivering a speech in the aftermath of the disaster. He acknowledges that magic has survived and mentions the abominable arts still existing in the world. He reveals that the boy they took from the witch's hands a decade ago has been unleashed upon the world, which he considers the worst outcome. He labels it a true disaster. The king continues by sharing that Adonis, a longtime prisoner, was indeed a human like them but had become a remnant of the old world, enthralled by magic. Despite 10 years of captivity, they failed to understand how he wielded magic as a human. Looking back, the king expresses regret for allowing him to live. The king reassures the people not to fear, emphasizing that the Radia Empire is the pinnacle of the world. He asserts that their acquired scientific power and unwavering military will can withstand evil forces. He encourages the citizens to let their pride burn bright, proud to be born in the Radia Empire. He declares that the old world is gone, God is dead, and now the nation itself stands as a god. The scene shifts to a girl named Eri at school. She's watching the king's speech on her smartphone. In class, the teacher acknowledges that things haven't been easy, with some of their fellow students losing their lives. Despite this, he insists they must push forward because the national mock exams are beginning tomorrow. One student asks the teacher why the witch's apprentice, who was supposed to be human, sided with the witches. The teacher suggests that the apprentice may have been brainwashed or influenced by something. He concludes the class, stating that homeroom is over. A girl in the class confronts Eri, implying that Eri did something wrong. Eri questions what her problem is, and the girl explains that Eri's reaction to the situation was normal. Other girls in the class urge the questioning girl to hurry up, as they're running late. She leaves, and the scene switches to Eri at a site of a collapsed building. Eri visits a memorial where people are paying their respects to those who lost their lives in the disaster. She believes the soldiers should have done a better job of protecting the citizen. Flashbacks show that on the day of the disaster, Eri was on a date with her boyfriend, Takuma. She left Takuma behind when he was trapped under a building. Takuma was shocked that Eri abandoned him, mentioning that she was the one who confessed her love to him. In the present, Eri reflects on her actions and can't believe she left her boyfriend behind. What's even more surprising is that she finds the guy who used magic to kill her boyfriend kind of attractive. Suddenly, a man from the government appears behind Eri. She tries to delete her pictures, but the man reassures her that it's fine. He asks her not to tell anyone about the pictures. The man explains that the witch's apprentice is a terrible criminal who caused the disaster. He urges Eri not to be afraid, promising not to report her. Eri realizes she has to leave and makes her exit. The man contacts someone and informs them of Eri's location. He believes she might have been influenced by the terrorists and requests her custody, mentioning that the National Security Bureau will handle the rest. He adds that she might either face execution or imprisonment for treason. In another scene, a soldier informs the man, named Oz, that they've completed the final check. We discover that Oz is the deputy director of the National Intelligence Agency. He speaks on the phone, expressing how tiring inspecting the disaster area has been and asks the person on the other end for a kiss and a hug upon his return. The person on the phone, Charmy, asks us to address her transfer request soon as she can no longer handle the overtime and sexual abuse. Charmy, a chief investigator, mentions that some unbelievable analysis has just come in. According to this analysis, Adonis's body is fake. In another location, the real Adonis awakens. The story continues as we see Adonis open his eye, but he's in a lot of pain. Some witches are taking care of him, tries to hold him down, but his body temperature, heart rate, and blood pressure keep rising. They believe that the transformation he went through was too intense for a human to handle. Adonis is out cold and keeps screaming in agony. Then, a witch named Ophelia comes to the rescue. She uses her magical abilities to help him regain control of his mind. Adonis starts mumbling and mentions Chloe's name and become unconscious. The scene changes, and Adonis wakes up at the same place he was killed. His head is nearby, and a girl named Anna explains that this is the magic known as duplication magic, death cancel. Adonis is confused. Anna tells him that she and Doroka infiltrated this country with a plan to resurrect the witch Chloe, and Adonis is part of the plan. They're trying to take him out of there. Adonis finds himself flying in a ball high in the sky, and the girl cries and apologizes to Doroka. In another scene, Adonis wakes up, and Ophelia thanks him for fighting for them. Adonis is angry and demands to know where he is. Ophelia tells him that this is the land of witches. Adonis is then in a chair, watching witches play and gather fruits. One of the witches asks if he's well enough to be awake, and he says he's fine. She is sure that Chloe would be sad if anything happened to him. Adonis asks if they've met Chloe before. The girl says they met her when they were kids, and she was very kind to them. Adonis is then taken to Ophelia. He tries to stand but is too weak. Ophelia explains that the path to this isolated land was long and challenging, taking a toll on his body. Adonis looks at his hand, and the girl mentions that it's the harvest of the season. Adonis talks to Ophelia and asks what she did to him. She says she simply invited him here as Chloe's student. Adonis then asks if she knew Chloe as well, to which Ophelia responds that there's no witch in this land who doesn't know Chloe. Chloe was the most powerful, intelligent, and joyful of all the witches, despite her ice magic. She was warm at heart, but she was cast out of the land of witches. Adonis interrupts, saying she was cast out because she taught magic to a human. Ophelia is surprised and asks if Chloe told him about this, but Adonis reveals that Chloe didn't tell him, but he figured it out after spending a long time with her. Ophelia clarifies that to witches magic is irreplaceable. It is like their soul. They consider their magic a gift from God to lead humankind. It is not something a human should ever be taught, but Chloe took on a human apprentice. Other witches didn't understand her intentions, and every witches begged her to abandon her apprentice and return. But she has only one reply: sorry. Adonis urges her to get to the point, and she reveals his quill. Adonis immediately demands it back, and Ophelia comments on its craftsmanship, believing only Chloe could make such an item. However, she returns it to him. Adonis wonders if it's really possible to bring back his master, and Ophelia assures him that witches don't lie, which relieves him. But suddenly, he sees the earth above him and questions what's happening. Ophelia explains that they are in a secluded land beyond the reach of humans. Witches established their nation on the moon, known as Lunamilia, 10 years ago to live in peace. The scene shifts to Earth, where Yamato and a group of soldiers prepare for war. Then, it changes again to Ophelia and Adonis sitting on the moon, looking at Earth. Ophelia muses about the true nature of humans, wondering if God made the world spherical to limit how far they can see because of concerns about their future. Adonis isn't convinced. Ophelia shows him the gravestones of witches and continues talking about human nature, mentioning that they're often bound by their expressions. She suggests that the opposite of love isn't indifference, as commonly believed, but hate. She adds that the human king believes the witches will destroy humankind, and that's the reason he started the war. In the next scene, Adonis is shown the sacred Mino tree, which is how witches are born or regenerated. Ophelia explains that it's the last surviving tree they brought from Earth before humans destroyed the others. Adonis is intrigued as he observes one of the fruits, thinking that Chloe could be inside. Ophelia tells him that it will require his help to turn it into Chloe. She explains that magic is the act of giving thoughts a physical form, and his writing style, summoning magic, embodies this concept. He can use it to seal his master's memories into the fruit, which will be the key to her resurrection. Ophelia advises Adonis to take his time and contact her when he's ready. Adonis starts thinking about his master, and suddenly Anna approaches him. He's curious about her intentions, but Anna is in tears over losing Doroka just to save him. Adonis tells her it's not his problem and walks away. Anna thinks he's selfish, only concerned about resurrecting his master, and wonders why they risked their lives for someone like him. Adonis knows the real plan of the witches, and it shocks Anna. He reveals that in Doroka's final moments, she warned him about the witches' intentions. He realizes that witches can survive in harsh conditions without protective gear, and that their grand facility is meant to keep humans captive. Adonis believes they plan to abduct slaves and children, transferring their ability and teaching them the magic writing style to fight for the witches. He understands that the witches are on the brink of extinction, so they're seeking ways to recruit more soldiers. Adonis explains that only Chloe can make the quills, and the witches want to resurrect her so she can create more people like him who will fight for their cause. It looks like witches are no innocent either. Adonis acknowledges their cunning and agrees to comply with Ophelia's wishes, and nothing more. He starts to leave, but Anna stops him, expressing her determination not to let Doroka's sacrifice go to waste. She saved him for a specific reason. Adonis responds that he will resurrect Chloe, but he won't go beyond that. He'll follow Chloe's will, and that's the extent of it. However, he warns that if Chloe refuses, the witches will become his enemies as well. Anna is shocked by his words and his knowledge about their plans. Meanwhile, we shift to Ophelia, who informs the other witches about their plan to perform a ritual to restore the witch Chloe. They engage in various rituals and incantations that are all interconnected. Ophelia explains to Adonis that they brought him here through their will, but now it's his will that will bring Chloe back to life. Adonis comprehends and proceeds with the written style summoning magic using his feather. He uses the spell Nostalgic Memories, adding the memories of longing he shared with his teacher, Chloe. Lights suddenly emanate from the witches, and they enter the place from which Chloe will be reborn. As Adonis observes this, he remembers a time when he and Chloe sat on a rooftop, and she pointed to the witches' Falulu constellation. Chloe mentions it makes the beautiful face of the great Falulu, which somewhat resembles her. Adonis, frustrated by hearing the same information repeatedly, points out that she doesn't look anything like the constellation. To change the subject, she points to it in the sky again and tells him it's the Dragon of the Sea constellation. Adonis then points to the sky and identifies the last phoenix as Claris, the Giant of Knowledge. Chloe is amazed by his knowledge and overjoyed that Adonis has absorbed so much so quickly. She asks if he's some kind of divine prodigy, but realizes that since she taught him, that makes her like a god. Adonis points a constellation Adonis after which Chloe named him, but Chloe says she doesn't remember it. Their shared memories are filled with happiness and occasional arguments. Returning to reality, Adonis expresses that he would never trade the time they spent together for anything, but now it all feels like a dream. He recalls times when he called Chloe at home, and she left her clothes scattered around. He takes the cloth and accidentally peeks at Chloe bathing, but is shocked to see the scars in her body. Chloe asks him not to peek at her, but he gets flustered and expresses concern about her taking a long time to bathe. Chloe bursts into tears, thanking him profusely for caring about her and insisting that he has to stay with her. She can't live in this world alone, and tears continue to flow from her eyes. Back in reality, Adonis responds by saying he can't either, and the light gathers at the birthplace of Chloe, and Adonis continues his incantation. Chloe responds, thanking him for everything, and Adonis becomes deeply moved, tears welling up in his eyes. Suddenly, the birthplace radiates with intense light, and from it, a mass of white moon-like light descends, giving birth to Doroko. The story continues as Adonis couldn't help but recall the first time he met Ophelia. He asked her if she could really resurrect Chloe. Ophelia confidently assured him that witches never tell lies. The scene shifted to a moment where Adonis, Ophelia, and the local witches stood before a tree, all fixing their gaze on Chloe, who was perched in the branches. They attempted to heal her, but despite Adonis's deep love for her, he refused to help. He didn't want Chloe to experience the pain of the harsh world again, believing she couldn't bear its burden. Adonis decided to use a spell called Nostalgic Memories, to replace his longing for Chloe with different memories. This unexpected display of power stunned everyone present. From the tree, Doroko descended, and Adonis embraced her when she awoke from her slumber. He explained that he didn't want to leave his debt to her unpaid. Doroko mustered her strength and realized she was in a place called Lunamilla, the land of witches. She found herself facing Ophelia and the other witches but couldn't remember how she got there, except for being shot. Doroko then noticed she was naked and asked why, quickly apologizing for the awkward situation and requesting Adonis to erase it from his memory. Adonis reassured her, provided clothes, and told her that she had saved him in Rhodia, so now they were even. Doroko inquired about Chloe, but Adonis remained silent. Ophelia confronted Adonis, expressing her disappointment in his actions. She reminded him of the witches' dedication to helping him, risking their lives to save him, tending to his wounds, and ensuring his safety. They also tried to heal Chloe so that she could live again. Ophelia accused him of squandering their efforts, suggesting that he had never truly loved his teacher. The witches mocked him for betraying them and abandoning Chloe in favor of Doroko. Ophelia addressed Doroko, suspecting that she might have influenced Adonis to abandon Chloe. Doroko couldn't respond, and Adonis ordered everyone to keep quiet, dismissing them as insignificant witches. He declared his unwavering decision not to resurrect Chloe, which led Ophelia to mock him for his arrogance, claiming that in their eyes, he was nothing more than a mere human. Amid their conversation, a sudden teleportation process appeared, leaving Ophelia bewildered about what Adonis had done. Adonis apologized, explaining that he had been a long-term prisoner. He showed Ophelia a chip and revealed his plan to hunt humans on his own, without interference. The chip unexpectedly exploded, causing fear among everyone, and then they noticed the Mido tree was on fire, shocking them all. Yamato arrived, surprised to find one of the witch trees still standing. He informed the group that the unidentified dome had suitable oxygen levels and removed his protective guard. Other soldiers also arrived, surrounding Adonis and Doroko. Yamato mockingly referred to them as the last remnants of an evil lineage, comparing them to rats in a cage. Adonis then revealed that he had called them to this graveyard to confront them. One of the witches assured Ophelia not to worry, claiming they could control the fire with her water magic. However, as she attempted the spell, a soldier struck her, splitting her in half. Ophelia was left in shock, unsure of how to save her city. Desperate, she called upon Santa Maria for help, who used her enchantment magic to transform all the witches into battle attire, ready to fight Yamato and his men. The battle commenced, with Adonis trying to use summoning magic in a direct manner. Yamato rushed at him with his sword, injuring Adonis on the face. Adonis managed to take Yamato's weapon and struck him with it, causing Yamato to fall to the ground. Adonis continued to attack him, inflicting significant pain and repeatedly urging him to get up, as he had come to kill him. Doroko intervened and held Adonis back to prevent further harm. The scene changed to Crystal Maya, the gem witch, using her power on the soldiers. Many gems appeared on the soldiers, making them unable to move or breathe as the gems kept growing. Then Dakia, the Venom Fang witch, joined the attack, releasing her snakes to attack and kill the soldiers. Following that, Griana, the Swarm Witch, used her power to kill the soldiers with centipedes. Some other witches joined the fight, attacking with arrows and tree branches. Ophelia also used her power, lifting the soldiers into the air. They tried to shoot her, but all the bullets changed their path, and she collected them, forming a ball. She used her magic, called the Death Game, to completely crush the soldiers. Olivia expressed her belief that humans were very weak, like infants, and she thought victory would be on their side. However, she was surprised to see the Swarm Witch cut in half as more soldiers appeared. Olivia remarked that they were trying to win the fight by outnumbering the witches. The scene shifts to the directors. One of the directors, named Dynasma, asks Director Theta why there are still so many witches alive despite their efforts to exterminate them. Director Theta explains that the -89 model, used for physical transfer, was thrown into space after the witch extermination war. However, the witches seem to have captured one of these models and used it to their advantage. The director mentions that the witches used their knowledge to escape. Theta apologizes for not discovering this sooner. The director questions her again, pointing out that the moon base they built was hidden from their astronomical radar by magical camouflage. He confronts her, asking why she allowed this to happen, warning that this failure will have severe consequences, more than just her life. Another director intervenes, named Shirasaki, the National Intelligence Agency director. He suggests that they should focus on finding a way to end the current situation, as soldiers are still hunting witches. Later, the scene shifts to Yuki, and Yamato reflects on how she had always been by his side. When he joined the National Security Office, Yuki did the same, and when he became the youngest deputy director in history, she continued to support him. Yamato finds her amazing and asks Director Theta why she assured him that everything would be fine, reminding her that Yuki is only 14 years old. Returning to the present, Yamato confronts Agnes, blaming him for everything that's happening. He promises that Agnes will pay a high price for it and boosts his power to 500%. Agnes tries to shoot him, but Yamato's speed is too much. He delivers a powerful blow to Agnes's face, causing him to fall to the ground. Doroko rushes to check on him, and the furious leader of the soldiers, Yamato, is surprised to find Agnes standing with the witches, even though he is human. In his anger and fury, Yamato grabs his sword and recalls memories of Yuki, his beloved, and the happy moments they shared. He becomes deeply saddened by these memories and sheds tears, expressing his desire to find a peaceful place to live with Yuki once the war is over. In his rage and enhanced power, he wants to take revenge on all the witches. He uses an anti-witch attack, surrounding the entire area, intending to kill all the witches with this strike. Agnes manages to evade the attack, causing only a minor injury to his face. Anna uses her death cancel at the right moment to save Doroko, and Doroko thanks her deeply for being her friend. However, Anna tragically dies shortly after, leaving Doroko deeply saddened and screaming in grief. At the same time, the National Security Office contacts their headquarters to report that they've lost the video feed and can't assess the situation. They urgently request an update. Doroko is shown crying intensely due to the loss of her friend Anna. She pleads with everyone to stop the killing and bloodshed. The scene then shifts back to Agnes and Commander Yamato. Yamato tells Agnes that he will kill him and make him pay a high price for everything he has done. He informs the National Security Office that they have successfully eliminated all the witches, leaving only the boy, Agnes, whom he plans to eliminate. Agnes removes his cloak and uses his summoning magic to create armor in his hand. Yamato tries to strike him with his sword, but Agnes swiftly avoids the attack. Agnes then uses a powerful spell and strikes Yamato. Yamato attempts to deflect it with his sword, but this blow shatters his sword and causes a severe injury. Agnes tries to strike him again, but Yamato successfully blocks it and significantly increases his power. He quickly renews his sword, and Agnes realizes it was a trick to catch him off guard. Yamato is determined to eliminate him. Yamato strikes Agnes with a very powerful blow with his sword, but Agnes blocks it with both of his hands. Suddenly, the presence of some witches who haven't completely died but have been severely wounded becomes apparent. They say it's over for them now. Ophelia, in her final breath, tells them not to give up, but the witches say that the Mido tree has been completely burned and will never give birth to witches again. One of the witches, in an emotional outburst, says they won't surrender and can't bear to lose more of their kind. They decide to support Agnes and defeat the National Security Bureau. However, suddenly, one of the soldiers kills her, and many soldiers join him in killing many of the witches. The battle between Yamato and Agnes continues. Yamato uses his thermal-electric powers to the maximum, creating a massive storm of blood. Agnes tries to break through it but struggles. Suddenly, a sword emerges from Yamato and pierces Agnes's body, severely wounding him. Yamato mocks the witches, asking if this is all they can do. But Agnes activates a powerful spell, summoning a sword from the sky that cuts off Yamato's arm and inflicts massive damage. Agnes points out that they both seek revenge and share a similar determination. Meanwhile, the soldiers who want to kill the witches are conflicted. One of the witches pleads with them not to kill her, and a soldier admits he no longer finds pleasure in it. The battle between Agnes and Yamato intensifies as Yamato vows to kill him and uses his final attack. The scene then shifts to the headquarters of the National Science Agency, where they're inquiring about the leaders of the attack. There's no video footage showing what happened, as all the cameras are strangely disabled. The confrontation between Yamato and Adonis continues. Yamato uses his maximum electrothermal power, causing a big explosion. Adonis tries to attack again, but the electricity's overwhelming power stops him. Yamato uses his sword to hit Adonis in the chest, sending him flying. Even though Adonis is wounded, he's still alive and struggling to breathe. He warns Yamato not to fool around. A gigantic sword comes down from the sky, cutting off Yamato's arm. Adonis looks at him mockingly, saying they both share the same vengeance in their eyes. Yamato tries to strike Adonis with his sword. The story goes on with a sudden scream, and Doroko pleads for the fight to stop. Yamato finds himself unable to move, and Adonis praises Doroko's powerful spell that has left all the soldiers motionless. Doroko, knowing Yamato is their leader but unaware of his name, asks him for it. Yamato reveals his name, and Doroko's spell makes all the soldiers immobile as she continues talking to Yamato. Yamato realizes Doroko has complete control over him, understanding the danger of her spell. The scene shifts to a group of witches discussing Doroko's actions with confidence that she can use her magic for their benefit. It returns to Doroko as Yamato struggles to turn towards her, demanding her to cancel her enchantment. However, Doroko enhances the spell, known as the love spell Mandragora, to immobilize him even more. Adonis is pleased and urges Doroko to finish Yamato. Doroko tells Yamato that they must stop fighting, wanting it to end. She suggests shaking hands and reconciling, insisting they shouldn't fight anymore. Doroko asks him to promise not to attack her or Adonis. She promises to release all the soldiers if he keeps his word, allowing them to leave in peace. Doroko continues to beg him to stop the fighting, but Adonis becomes extremely angry with her for her words. He informs her that they've killed Anna, expressing fury at her apparent willingness to let humans live after killing witches. Adonis tells Doroko that if she doesn't kill Yamato now, she'll die later. The spell effect on Yamato disappears, and he attacks her in anger. He intends to strike her in the face forcefully, criticizing her love spell as trivial, and telling her she's just a witch with no value in human society. He hits her repeatedly, expressing their intention to use science to exterminate all witches, considering them a plague bringing terror and chaos to the world. Yamato questions Doroko about what Adonis did to their nation, causing a massive catastrophe and killing countless innocents. He asserts that Adonis wouldn't be there if it weren't for the witches who supported him, emphasizing that all witches must die with no survivors, as they are considered garbage. Yamato stresses that if it weren't for magic, nothing would have happened to his sister Yuki. Doroko tells him that they, too, killed an uncountable number of people while hunting witches over the past 10 years, questioning why they did so when they don't need witches anymore since they have science. She pleads with Yamato to end the conflict, wanting him to order his men to withdraw. However, Yamato refuses, believing it's impossible for him to do so. Doroko activates her love spell again, immobilizing him once more. Yamato doesn't understand this strange feeling, recalling the beginning of his life as a young soldier in the mighty Radia Empire. He later became the esteemed Director Yamato of the National Security Bureau, resolving never to be defeated by such an enchantment. He then remembers a time when he was a little boy running to a lady who hugged him with love. Returning to reality, he tells Doroko that he will obey her. Before he can finish his sentence, Adonis thrusts a sword through his head. Yamato, still greatly affected by the spell, tells Doroko that he loves her, and suddenly, Adonis cuts off Yamato's head from his body, avenging everyone who died. Doroko angrily asks how he could do this, and Adonis responds that they can use her magic to destroy all of humanity, with no need for pretense anymore. The scene shifts to the royal palace, where a soldier updates the king on the ongoing events with the witches on the moon. The king, not interested in empty words, learns that Director Yamato's attack is still in progress, with the remaining witches resisting vigorously. However, communication with their forces is weak, and they lack precise details. The soldier nervously shares his belief that victory is assured, and when asked about Adonis, he informs them that Adonis is likely still present. The king is delighted and passionately commands to burn down the witches and the entire moon with them. He expresses a desire for the witches and Adonis, seeking vengeance on humanity, to perish. He instructs the soldier to kill them all, laughing hysterically like a madman. Overjoyed, he embraces his wife, claiming victory over the cursed witches, and the attendees applaud. The soldier, observing the king's deteriorating mental state, believes he has lost his sanity. The ruler's wife reveals that he sometimes behaves like a baby, which is unsurprising given the burden he has carried for a long time. Suddenly, she activates a love spell, praising the king for hunting down the witches and taking full control of him. She commands him to jump and die. The blissful king, under the spell, complies without feeling anything. The soldier is taken aback, realizing the ruler's wife is a witch. She moves him forward, and he climbs to the top of the building to throw himself off. Despite the soldiers' attempt to stop him, the king, in a state of bliss, insists not to hinder him. He praises himself, claiming importance and scientific accomplishments for the Radia Empire, making it the most powerful country in the world. He tearfully expresses love for the queen and a willingness to serve her forever. The queen, embarrassed by his words, instructs him to die quickly. He jumps from the building and dies, impaled on the sharp peak, suspended in the air. The queen then cancels the love spell Mandragora, revealing herself as a witch. The soldier, realizing the queen is a witch, urgently requests reinforcements, but she takes control of him. He informs the reinforcements that the king slipped from the building and died, asking them to recover the body. The soldier expresses love for the witch, and she calls out to Shirasagi, asking if what she did is right. Shirasagi fully supports her actions, including killing the emperor, stating there's no problem with that. The queen informs Shirasagi that her magic only works on men, and is not effective on women. She considers all witches dangerous, and advocates for their elimination. The man agrees, believing it's what they deserve, and mentions the whole world will be hers, revealing the queen's name as Dorothea. However, she corrects him, stating she doesn't want this world. She turns to the other side, removes her mask, revealing long hair, and asks to be called by her first name, Dorothea. The witch flies into the air, takes his hand, and explains that she has abandoned the concepts of pretense and hypocrisy long ago. Back on the grim battlefield, where blood covers the ground like an endless sea, most witches are drowning. Adonis takes Doroko's hand and tells her about his plan to use magic to destroy humanity. He asks for her help, but she strongly refuses. Adonis then looks back towards the soldiers, running to them and instructing Doroko not to undo her spell. Instead, he uses summoning magic to create a binding spell that surrounds the soldiers. Adonis asks them to beg, similar to what he did when Chloe was killed. Doroko pleads with him not to go through with it, but he proceeds to kill the soldiers one by one in quick succession until they are all dead. Doroko expresses her reluctance to use magic on Adonis, but she warns him that if he doesn't stop fighting, she might have to use the spell on him. Adonis confronts her, putting his head against hers, and suggests that she should use the spell if she wishes, even if it means she will die again. Undeterred, he charges towards the soldiers once more, determined to seek revenge. However, Doroko intervenes, informing Adonis that seeking revenge won't be something Chloe would have wanted. Adonis dismisses her words, asking her to be silent and not to use outdated expressions. Doroko explains that she is tired of seeing so many people killed without reason, expressing her disdain for combat and her desire for a peaceful and dignified life. We switch to the international agency where everyone is working hard to restore the video feed. Currently, all cameras are disabled, leaving them unaware of what's happening on the other side. Suddenly, the electrical power is completely cut off from the main headquarters. The director informs them that he's receiving a signal from somewhere, and grants permission to access the broadcast line. The video appears on the screen, showing Commander Yamato, making everyone rejoice, thinking he's safe and speaking to them. However, in reality, it's Adonis orchestrating this by cloning Yamato's voice. Adonis, disguised as Yamato, informs them of good news. The enemies have been defeated, and all the witches on the surface of the moon have been wiped out. He describes the intense battle, with bodies turning into pieces and many promising soldiers lost. Adonis claims to be the only survivor who will return to the planet. General Theta in the chair realizes that the person is not Yamato. Adonis, still disguised, holds the head of the witch's apprentice and tells them to bring him back to the surface, and the broadcast is cut. Adonis discards the skin, revealing the old witch who is somehow still alive. She tells Adonis that this was his plan all along, allowing him to disguise himself as one of the summoned soldiers and escape. Adonis then grabs Doroko's hand, urging her to come with him, but she screams in his face, refusing to join him. She slaps him hard and scolds him for his actions, questioning how Chloe would react if she saw him now. Adonis ignores her, and the teleportation begins. The Witch Queen bids him farewell, cursing him with strong words, calling him a criminal and a hypocrite, and wishing death upon him. The scene shifts back to the International Agency on Earth, where everyone is making efforts to bring back Director Yamato. Theta informs them that the boy is the witch's apprentice disguised as Yamato, and the countdown for teleportation begins. As soon as the countdown finishes, Theta orders them to fire. The soldiers are firing on the gate nonstop. However, to their surprise, there is no one there. The scientist explains that there's a trace of an additional command in the teleportation system. The coordination of the teleportation has been changed. She asks them to track him. The scientist says there's no response from the end terminal, and they can't track it. At that time, she falls to the ground, her eyes filled with sorrow, her face stained with blood from the intensity of her grief because she was tricked by a 12-year-old. The scene shifts now to Adonis, the witch's disciple. They have returned to the surface of the planet. He informs Doroko that they can't be too hasty if they want to take down Radia. They need a proper plan. That is when we learn how Adonis changes the coordinates. We see that he uses his summoning magic to change his voice and starts using Amato's phone. But at that moment, Doroko shouts at him, telling him to wait as some of the witches are still alive. Adonis doesn't listen to her and changes the coordination of the teleportation to 37 and 42. The phone recognizes Adonis's voice as Yamato's and accepts the changing coordinates. Back to reality, Adonis tells her that on their way to the Radia Empire in the Northern Hemisphere, they'll attack the villages and cities along the way. They'll gather information and loot for resources while they regroup, as they also need some medical supplies. However, Doroko tells him that she wants to go back and be with the remaining witches. He asks if she is a fool. He explains that none of the witches on the moon would have survived. But she insists and cries, asking him to take her back to the moon. Adonis asks if she is throwing a tantrum, but she says it's not her. It's Adonis himself who keeps babbling about revenge. Adonis uses his written summoning magic, memory summoning, and shows her how she was trying to stop their hate but failed miserably. Adonis tells her that now he understands why all the witches don't like her. Doroko says that she had been looking forward to meeting you. She kept thinking about what kind of person the disciple of which Chloe was. She was curious about who Adonis was, as someone who became a witch's disciple despite being a human. She thought that Adonis, who lived as a human and as a witch, would become the bridge of communication between humans and witches. She thought he was the only hope. Adonis tells her that she doesn't know him at all. She asks Adonis how far he is going to take it. She says that he already knows after that battle on the moon. Just like how he hates mankind, they'll never forgive him. If this continues, this battle will never end. If they don't break this chain of hatred, the resentment will never be gone. Adonis tells Doroko that she won't be able to change his mind. He says that Chloe's life is more noble than all of the human lives out there. The world that took away her life should be destroyed. Doroko asks how many people Adonis is going to sacrifice for it. She asks him if all the witches on the moon died because of this anger. She tells Adonis that it was his fault for luring them to the moon. But Adonis says that because of that, they were able to return to Earth. He tells her that her companions became the best shields for them. Doroko tells him that he is the most horrible one she has ever seen and asks how could he say that when they barely managed to survive the witch hunt. Doroko says that she won't allow Adonis to laugh at them and the lives that were lost. Adonis asks who's laughing at those lost lives. He says that she sounds so righteous, but she just watched while her companions were killed. And she still wanted to make peace with those humans. She is the one who has defiled those lost lives. Doroko says that even if he gets his revenge, it won't take away his pain. Adonis says that it doesn't matter. He says that he has nothing to lose anyway. Doroko says that Chloe sacrificed her life to save him. No matter how cruel, empty, or heartless this world is, she asks him not to fall into the abyss. Doroko tells him that she won't ask him to forgive them. But if he continues to seek revenge, his heart will crumble eventually. He'll turn into those people who killed Chloe. She says that he has so many things that he can't lose. Adonis tells Doroko she doesn't know him at all. Revenge is the meaning of his existence. It's the irreplaceable proof that he had once shared his life with Chloe. If he doesn't avenge her, the trace of her existence will disappear. He's afraid of that. He asks her if she can understand him now. Doroko starts crying, and Adonis mocks her, saying she is such a crybaby. Doroko apologizes, but then she realizes that Adonis is injured and has lost a lot of blood. Suddenly, a group of bikers arrives and sees them. They look at them as a lovey-dovey couple. One of the bikers says that he will report it first to his boss. He then tells his boss that they have one man and one woman having fun at their side. The other biker comments that they are really adventurous to do it in the middle of the desert. Another one says that maybe they are slaves who ran away from the city but gets confused as they look well dressed. He then says that nothing surprises him anymore. After all, this is not the old world anymore. He then asks their leader, Punch, what they should do. The scene changes to Adonis waking up in an unknown place. He remembers that before he passed out, he saw Punch and his group heading toward them, and Doroko pleading for help. Back to the present, Punch comes and sees that Adonis is awake. Adonis looks at him, and Punch says that his gaze looks so terrifying. He asks Adonis to have a sip of alcohol so that he can recover. But Adonis says that he doesn't have the habit of drinking dirty water. Punch says that he is quite interesting because, according to him, Adonis labeled the greatest invention of mankind, alcohol, as dirty water. He then introduces himself, and Adonis realizes that he is really in a settlement. But he notices that it doesn't look like it's under Radia. He asks Punch if there should be another young lady besides him and what happened to her. Punch asks if he is talking about that lady with peach-colored hair. and says that she's very cute. He asks Adnes if she is his woman, as she was taking care of him just now. But then, his subordinates took her away. Adnes gets angry and asks him again what happened to her. Punch tells him to calm down and follow him. Punch then tells Adnes that this is the Scrap Plains, another side of the Gear Expansion Revolution. The citizens of developing countries, the refugees, the slaves who escaped from Radia, and those who are abandoned by science are expelled here. Eventually, everyone becomes stateless inhabitants. Adnes notices the can he is holding also says made in Radia. Adnes tells him that this is miserable, and Punch agrees. He then hears weird voices of Doroko and people. Adnes asks what they are doing. Punch tells him that it's rare to find a woman out here, let alone a young lady, and Doroko really has a nice scream. Adnes rushes toward the crowd, only to see Doroko learning how to ride the bike. She asks them how to stop it. Some people tell her to straighten her waist, bend her knees to slow it down, and they are enjoying it. Adnes asks, what is she doing? She gets happy to see Adnes awake and falls from the bike. She asks him how his wound is. Adnes says that she is in a worse condition than he is. Doroko then gives him 2 small dolls as proof of reconciliation and apologizes that she didn't notice his wound and said so many hurtful things to him. Adnes asks, what are these? And says that he doesn't want them. Punch arrives, saying that it's time to party. All the gang members cheer, and he asks Doroko and Adnes to help them since he saved them, telling Doroko that she should at least pour the beer for them. The scene changes, and we see the gang members drinking and having a drinking competition. They ask for more beer, and Doroko serves them. An old man asks Doroko if she is the lady that Punch rescued. Doroko says she is, and she is really grateful to him. The old man says that she is very beautiful and cute and tries to touch her. Doroko realizes that this is bad and gives him 2 dumplings instead to touch, saying that he is old, so his hands are beyond his control. Adnes looks at all of this with serious eyes. The group then asks Doroko if she is having a fight with her boyfriend, but she says that they are not in that kind of relationship. Then they ask her a bunch of questions to verify it. She then tells them that they are just travel companions, traveling around the world together. They laugh at her words, but suddenly they fall and become unconscious. She wants to travel the world at this time. Adnes mocks them, saying that when they become stateless inhabitants, they don't pay attention to what they eat. Doroko asks Adnes if he poisoned the beer. Adnes says that he just had to rearrange the structure of alcohol to turn it into sleep medicine. He mocks her for not being able to read the spell. She confidently says that is too stupid to understand it. She asks Adnes again if they are not dead. He says that not yet and takes out the gun from one of the gang members. Doroko asks him to stop and tells him that he has misjudged them. All of the people here are kind and sincere. Not only did they save them from the desert, but they even patched them up. Adnes and they are their saviors. Adnes says that he won't kill them because, for him, stateless inhabitants are not even treated as humans. There's no point for him to harm them. He then says that he doesn't actually need Doroko. She asks him why. He says that he lost someone important to him, just like she did, but he couldn't smile and laugh like she did. He then tells her that they are like fire and water. Doroko says she did this because she wants to hide her identity as a witch. She needs to blend in with the people. She must be careful with how she acts so that no one will know that she is a witch. That's why she laughed and accommodated them. But after all that had happened, how could she be fine? Adnes says that since they are like fire and water, she shouldn't turn into someone like him. We then see Doroko with a sad face, and Punch arrives, asking her if her boyfriend left. She says that Adnes is not her boyfriend. Punch says that he's as rude as he just left without thanking him first, and abandoned her in such a horrible place. He tells her that she did the right thing by breaking up with him. Doroko says that he's actually a very gentle person. We then see Adnes walking alone in the desert, and he looks back and remembers all the stuff Doroko told him. He snaps back and sees someone coming. He wonders if the effect of the sleep medicine is too weak or if it's Radia's soldiers. He starts casting his summoning magic and says it doesn't matter who it is. He'll kill anyone who tries to stop him. Meanwhile, we see that in the biker gang base camp. Punch tells Doroko that he knew that Adnes was the disciple of the witch. He is different from how he is now. He says that he has met him before. Doroko was shocked to hear this. He then tells that he will never forget about what happened that day when his life was hanging by a thread. He saw sparkling snow and that ice witch and his apprentice who gave him water. He says that having someone who's willing to go against the world for you is the greatest happiness that you can ever receive. Punch then tells Doroko that maybe she has the right mindset. But whether seeking revenge is good or bad is not something that can be determined so easily. This world is so cruel that it's unbearable. Adnes chose to seek revenge even though he knows that it's a path of no return. But that is his choice. He then asks about what Doroko wants to do. She says that she doesn't want to see anyone get killed again. Since she couldn't protect Anna and the others, she wants to at least protect Agnes. Punch asks her if she really has the time to chat with him here. Back to Agnes, we see that it was Doroko riding the bike and asks Agnes to move aside since she doesn't know how to stop it. Agnes asks if she's trying to run him down. She then tells him that she will do her best not to drag him down. So let's travel together. She says that after thinking about it, she still thinks that Agnes needs her, as it's dangerous and lonely to travel alone. She tells him that they can support and help each other if they travel together. Agnes asks her then why is she not stopping. She tells him that she doesn't know how to stop it. Agnes tells her to hit the brake. The story continues in the capital of Rydia. Everyone is joyously celebrating the coronation of their new emperor. Oz reassures everyone, saying things are fine and it's a peaceful night, despite their empire having come to an end. The presenter then speaks about the mourning for their late emperor, who, through science and military strength, helped mankind regain its pride. Unfortunately, the beloved emperor couldn't escape the fate of his illness. But now, it's a time of rejoicing as a new successor is appointed, the late emperor's former wife, Empress Dorothea. Empress Dorothea introduces herself as an idol, capturing the hearts of every man in the empire. They all look forward to a promising future under her rule. However, far away, there's a guy who isn't happy about this situation. He watches everything on his phone and can't fathom how the world reached this point. He believes that Dorothea, whom he sees as a witch, used science to harm her own kind and has become the most significant ruler of humanity. The guy thinks she's even crazier than the prophecies had predicted. Meanwhile, in the wastelands, we encounter Shiragoshi, who is literally having a nosebleed while watching Dorothea's coronation on his phone. He admires her as if she were a goddess. However, something disturbs him, the fact that Agnes destroyed Yamato's terminal, making him untraceable. The guy gets up, revealing his power to control multiple hands, and decides he must find Agnes in his own way. He also mentions that Agnes is loved by her goddess. The scene changes to Agnes driving with Doroka. Curious about her plans, he asks what she is going to do now. Agnes then makes it clear that he won't give up on his revenge, surprising Doroka. She suggests that there are many good people like Mr. Punch out there. However, Agnes sighs and firmly says no. He anticipates that she might ask him to avoid fighting people like Mr. Punch. Agnes acknowledges that he's allowed her to come with him, but she must never get in his way. Though startled, Doroka accepts his condition. Agnes shifts the conversation, expressing his curiosity about Doroka's magic. He assumes her love magic allows her to manipulate men by making them fall in love with her. Doroka confirms, prompting Agnes to question why she never used it on him. He points out that she could have cast the spell when they first met in Rydia. Agnes is convinced that Ophelia ordered her to bring him to the moon, even if it meant using her magic, a seemingly efficient way. However, Doroka didn't cast her magic on him, leaving Agnes puzzled. He wonders why and asks her why she tried to persuade him instead, noting a certain look in her eyes. Doroka explains that she didn't want their first meeting to be like that, and Agnes agrees, stating it would have been the worst possible way to meet. They later arrive in a small town called Sandland, and it looks completely run down. Doroka asks if it's an empty town, and Agnes just tells her to wait while he checks it out. Doroka is scared and wants to go with him, promising not to get in his way. Agnes, feeling a bit pressured, reluctantly agrees. But he's curious about her bag. Doroka explains that Mr. Punch gave her the bag before she left. She describes its contents: blankets, bandages, food, and drinks. Then, she pulls out a snowman hat, saying it's amazing. With a click of a button, it transforms into a huge tent. She happily notes Mr. Punch's style. Agnes, annoyed, walks away, and Doroka follows him as they explore the town. While walking, Doroka is pretty scared and asks Agnes if he thinks there are real ghosts there. However, Agnes is preoccupied with something else. He doesn't see any signs of fighting and can't understand why the town is empty. They come across the police station and decide to search inside for information. Agnes warns Doroka about the rundown building, but she gets scared at the sight of a mouse, bats, and webs. Agnes, annoyed by her reactions, despite her apology, reminds her to be careful or he'll leave her behind. She tries to follow him silently, but a random guy dressed as a police officer suddenly appears, asking if she's troubled. She screams and hides behind Agnes, thinking it's a ghost. The guy, however, welcomes them to the police department, tells the current time, and gives some indications. Agnes coldly informs Doroka that it's just a hologram. She's confused, asking if Agnes knows this guy, but he clarifies it's just a 3D image. Agnes walks away, calling the situation stupid. However, Doroka then realizes that the people who worked in the building were police officers. Agnes mocks her, pointing out that there is no one else living in the town anyway. Doroka bows and reassures the hologram that they aren't suspicious people. They continue exploring the building until they reach the cell rooms, and the place brings back unsettling memories for both Adonis and Doroka. Despite the discomfort, Adonis presses on. Suddenly, he stops, and Doroka, still scanning the area, bumps into his back. She tries to apologize, but he hushes her, hearing something. It turns out to be a song, echoing from the end of the corridor. They proceed and discover an old man playing a mini guitar, singing along. When Doroka attempts to interrupt, the old man doesn't seem to notice. After looking at Adonis's expression, Doroka shouts, startling the old man. He falls from his bed, surprised, and then starts screaming, demanding to know who they are and what's happening. He even mentions that the town was supposed to be empty, and they shouldn't have scared him. Doroka calmly replies that they are travelers passing through. The old man, still complaining about almost having a heart attack, questions what they are doing in the town, stating that it's obvious there's nothing there. He asks if they are on a tour to check some ruins, but Adonis, in an aggressive tone, questions why he's the only one left in town. Confused, the old man explains he's there because he's a prisoner. Adonis then notices a skeleton on the bed beside the old man. He starts walking away, leaving Doroka puzzled about why he's already leaving. Adonis states that staying there is pointless, considering he finds the place terrible. Doroka is confused, but the old man smiles. He finds it amusing that Adonis mentioned there's nothing there for them, claiming everyone said the same before leaving town. The old man begins to share more, discussing the gear expansion and how mankind managed to destroy the witches. Despite this victory, people were still living in poverty. He believes that's why people couldn't handle staying in the town. He talks about how everyone once proclaimed a glorious future for mankind filled with hope and pride. They all started to migrate, a situation he finds reminiscent of 10 years ago. It's as if the witch hunt began once again. He emphasizes that the person who speaks first and loudest is the one the rest will follow. However, Adonis straightforwardly inquires if the metropolis is close to their current location. The old man responds, stating that the Principality of Mamuda is nearby. Adonis starts walking away, prompting Doroka to join him. Before leaving the building, she first apologizes to the old man for interrupting his song. As they exit, Doroka suggests to Adonis that they should help the old man. She points out that there isn't anyone else in the town, and the old man might die from starvation. Doroka believes they should assist him, even if he's a prisoner. Adonis dismisses the idea, stating it's none of their business. Undeterred, Doroka tries to stop him from leaving and asks if it would be okay to share their food with the old man. Adonis stares at her, contemplating her lack of awareness. He then reveals that the old man's cell wasn't even locked. Doroka is confused, and Adonis adds that a married couple doesn't need time. They simply need quiet time undisturbed by anyone. The scene shifts to the old man gently placing the skeleton down while having a conversation with it. He mentions that they will continue singing their song together. The old man reassures Doroka not to worry because everyone is gone now, especially those who branded her a witch and confined her to that cell. Tearfully, the old man speaks of being forever together with his wife's skeleton, acknowledging his failure to protect her. Adonis returns to the bike, noting that while the town is empty, it's still a place for that couple to be alone. He instructs Doroka to jump in as they are heading to Mamuda. The story continues as we see Adonis and Doroka reach Mamuda after a long journey. Doroka noticed that Mamuda was an immigration state and asked Adonis if he planned to start a fight there. Adonis said he might. Doroka, concerned about the big city having many soldiers and weapons, tried to convey her worry to Adonis. Adonis didn't respond, and Doroka suggested they play rock, paper, scissors and let the winner decide what they should do. Adonis was reluctant, claiming he hadn't heard of the game, but Doroka insisted it was popular and fun on the streets. Despite Adonis's refusal, Doroka kept urging him as they entered the city. The city was in ruins, and Adonis pondered the point of his efforts if humans were destroying themselves. Doroka noticed a woman on the road, prompting Adonis to quickly apply the brakes on the motorbike. Doroka went to check on the woman, and Adonis warned her to stay cautious. Doroka thought the woman might not have much time left and asked if something had happened to her. Adonis interrupted, telling Doroka to get away, as the woman was not a real person. The woman analyzed Doroka, stating her pleasure value was low but that anyone would do as long as she could experience pleasure. She then tried to attack Doroka, but Adonis shot her down. After the encounter, Adonis helped Doroka up and explained that the woman was a Madao, a mechanical doll used for human entertainment. They heard sounds of marauders coming from a building, prompting Adonis to go inside and instruct Doroka to wait outside. Doroka wanted to join Adonis as he entered the building, but he asked her not to act without his permission. He told her to stay put if she didn't want to be left behind and instructed her to shout if anything happened. Inside, Doroka became scared upon seeing Madao bodies. Adonis used magic to create light in the building. Unbeknownst to Adnis, Doroka followed him, thinking that she wasn't doing it to anger him. She had promised to keep him safe and reasoned that Adnis wouldn't heartlessly leave a girl alone in an abandoned city. Even if he found her, she believed he would just overlook it. Doroka then recalled Adnis leaving her in the wastelands, understanding it was to keep her out of trouble. Although Adnis was intimidating when angry, he had never harmed her before. Doroka remembered their first meeting when Adnis did hurt her. Adnis found Doroka, expressing anger for her disobedience and questioning if she took him seriously. Doroka apologized, explaining that she thought it was better for them to stick together. She claimed to carry their bag as an excuse. Adnis acknowledged the logic and allowed her to do as she pleased but cautioned her not to hinder him. Together, Adnis and Doroka explored the building, and they heard voices of Madhouse coming from a room. Adnis remarked that the room smelled like death, and upon entering, he noticed Madhouse engaging in disturbing activities with deceased individuals. Witnessing this, Adnis thought about the consuming nature of desire, realizing he didn't know Madhouse could be created in such a way, almost like copies of humans. Notably, they were made in Radia. One of the Madhouse expressed a desire for love and lamented her situation, crying. Adnis was surprised to see a sense of self in them. The Madhouse questioned why they were made and programmed in such a manner, as they never asked for this kind of existence. In response, Adnis decided to end their suffering by shooting them. Gratefully, the Madhouse thanked him. Meanwhile, 2 girls from the Suzu Special Espionage Unit Kunoichi crew, named 5 and 6, were on their way somewhere. They encountered sentries from Radia, prompting 6 to ask 5 what they should do. 5 confidently stated they would pass right through and handle the sentries. Together, the 2 girls skillfully took care of the guards and continued on their journey. Back in Mamuda, Adnis contemplated the world's capability to create various toys, including sex robots. He believed it was inevitable that pleasure-centric robots, designed solely for providing satisfaction, would be produced. Adnis expressed his disdain for humans, labeling them as scum. He then asked Doroka if she recognized the manacles they found. Doroka identified them as coming from the Radia concentration camp. Adnis speculated on the difficulty the nation faced in importing numerous sex robots. He suggested that Mamuda might have traded its own women for more sexually pleasing dolls, possibly exporting all the women to the Great Radia Empire. This exchange, Adnis argued, revealed the true nature of humans. He claimed that Mamuda fell into ruin because, without women, the next generation couldn't be born. The men, drowned in pleasure, rotted away, and Adnis asserted that a nation built on such foundations could not endure. He suspected that Mamuda might not be the only nation to have fallen this way, expressing disgust at the implications of the gear expansion. Motivated by his revulsion, Adnis gathered some machinery to create something. When Doroka inquired about his project, Adnis revealed it was an improvised EMP. Doroka didn't understand, prompting Adnis to explain that he intended to put the Madhouse to rest. Doroka, realizing this meant a mercy kill, wondered if it would hurt them. Adnis assured her that the Madhouse would only feel a small shock. He channeled his magic through the machinery, generating an EMP wave that put the Madhouse to rest. One of them uttered something before shutting down. Hearing the Madhouse's last words, Doroka couldn't hold back her tears. However, she felt grateful that Adnis was with her in that moment. Meanwhile, 5 and 6 observed Adnis from a distance. 5, surprised that he was the wanted man from Radia, commented on his youthful appearance. 6 cautioned her not to underestimate Adnis, emphasizing that he had caused significant trouble for the Radia Empire. Adnis had attacked the New Nightmare in retaliation for witch hunts, slaughtering many citizens and even annihilating the elite force sent after him. 5 questioned the official stance of not getting involved with witch-related matters, but 6 revealed that Emperor Suzure had instructed them to capture anything that could help keep Radia in check. 5 speculated that Emperor Suzure might reward them if they succeeded, allowing them to live in the capital. 6, expressing her willingness to live anywhere as long as she was with her sister, proposed taking down Adnis. She assigned herself the task of dealing with the woman, instructing 5 to capture the witch's apprentice. Shirasagi was also in Mamuda and noticed the 2 sisters. He faced off against them, and they inquired about his identity. The sisters attempted to attack him, leading to a confrontation. The scene then shifted to Doroka, who was praying for the Madhouse at the grave she had built for them. She acknowledged that this was all she could do for them, urging them to rest in peace. Adnis, however, dismissed the act of offering condolences and building graves as a simple way for the living to cope. He told Doroka that if she truly wanted to honor the Madhouse, she should make the humans feel the resentment the Madhouse harbored. Doroka objected to Adnis's idea, saying it wouldn't be right. Adnis observed that she had created a grave for the witches of Lunamilia as well. Adnis then suggested that Doroka should stay there forever since she seemed to enjoy feeling sorry for herself. He explained that the witches in Lunamilia were killed by humans he had lured to them. Adnes questioned why Doroka traveled with him. Knowing this, he told her it was her last chance to reconsider. In response, Doroka showed Adnes the dolls she had made earlier. She expressed her reluctance to blame or argue with him. Doroka explained that the witches had tried to use Adnes, manipulating him with their desire for magic items against humanity. They had abducted him and provoked him in an attempt to rescue Chloe, ultimately betraying him. Adnes apologized to Doroka, and she agreed that they should move on. Adnes then asked her to remove the dolls from her bag, to which Doroka replied that she was proud of them. Adnes, questioning her skills, noticed Shirasagi sitting on their bike. Doroka, curious about Shirasagi, asked him who he was. Adnes deemed him an enemy, and Shirasagi destroyed their bike. And we see that Shirasagi had killed both 5 and 6. Shirasagi introduced himself to Adnes and Doroka, stating that he was there for Adnes's head. Adnes expressed his readiness to finally engage in combat. The story continues with the intelligence agency successfully finding Adnes. Their leader, Charmy, uses a surveillance drone to communicate with Adnes and Doroka. Charmy welcomes Adnes back but explains that he underestimated humanity, leading to their discovery of his unauthorized transfer coordinates on their server. We then see the intelligence team in action as they apprehend thieves and criminals nationwide. Charmy, not wanting to work overtime, urges Shiragasi to make things quick. Adnes realizes his mistake in underestimating how quickly they would find him. He's curious about the 2 heads Shiragasi is carrying, but Shiragasi doesn't know who they are. He explains that the 2 girls arrived before him, and they were also after Adnes. In his way, Shiragasi eliminated them. Doroka demands respect, but Shiragasi has no clue who she is. He threatens her, and Adnes intervenes by pulling her hair and tossing her aside. Adnes tries to use summoning magic, but Shiragasi quickly stops him. Adnes then pulls out his gun, but Shiragasi effortlessly dodges the shots due to his incredible reaction speed. Adnes realizes Shiragasi must be a cyborg. Adnes uses his magic creatively, firing a bullet and using a spell to make it grow. Charmy warns Shiragasi of the danger, but he remains calm and dodges the attack. Shiragasi attempts to attack Adnes, but Doroka uses her love spell on him, forcing him to stop. She threatens to immobilize him if he doesn't surrender, and Adnes seizes the opportunity to gather information. Adnes instructs Doroka to question Shiragasi about his ability, but Shiragasi starts laughing and reveals his delight at Doroka using the love spell. He mentions that she looks like a certain person, referring to the queen. Doroka is clueless, and Shiragasi explains that the queen's love spell led to the emperor taking his own life. Doroka and Adnes are puzzled by how Shiragasi is able to move, and suddenly, Shiragasi rips off his shirt. This reveals a heart on his chest, indicating that he is already under someone else's love spell. Shiragasi explains that he has numerous holes in his back and unleashes his ability called Hummingbird Release. This attack sends out robotic hands from his body, making Adnes think that the gear expansion has gone out of control. Adnes instructs Doroka to get out of the way, realizing that her love spell won't work on Shiragasi, rendering her powerless. Adnes recalls a memory of his beloved Chloe being tormented, with the Emperor deeming her useless if she couldn't use magic. Adnes, determined not to be like the Emperor, acknowledges Doroka's desire to be useful. She lifts a rock, not necessarily knowing if seeking revenge is right, but she has decided to stand by Adnes until the end, not wanting anyone else to lose their life. Doroka, aware she can't do much with the rock, is okay with it because Adnes has a plan. He puts the rock down and summons a rapier sword for her. Adnes also summons armor for himself and activates the sword, explaining that the magical blade can now pierce steel. With the sword, Doroka can destroy most things just by swinging it around. But Adnes suggests she learn some basic sword skills. Adnes summons an instruction manual that even someone like Doroka, who he jokingly calls a dumb witch, can understand. Shiragasi once again demands that they stop flirting and commands his robot hands to attack. Adnes and Doroka find themselves surrounded, forcing them to try to destroy each hand individually. Adnes is confident initially, as the hands are weak, but it becomes apparent that there is an endless wave of hands constantly attacking, overwhelming them. Adnes has to come to Doroka's rescue, realizing that there are just too many of these hands to handle. Shiragasi surprises everyone by revealing that the hands he unleashed are powerful. He sends a bunch of these powerful hands into the sky and removes the limiters to make them even more damaging. The powered-up hands then rain down from the sky. In response, Adnes uses a spell called Grape Near. This spell releases several energy ribbons that successfully destroy several of the powerful hands. While the ribbons do a good job for the moment, Adnes is determined to end the fight. He instructs Doroka to come close to him, and together, they are surrounded by energy to form a special variant that he calls the Cannonball. Shirogase is impressed by this giant ball of energy, but Charmy is terrified and warns Shirogase not to let it touch him. However, Shirogase, fearless, uses an ability called Hummingbird Castle. All the hands return to his body, and he uses them like thrusters, giving it their maximum power output. Miraculously, Shirogase manages to stop Adonis's giant ball in its tracks, pushing him back quite a bit. Shirogase is extremely satisfied when the ball completely stops. Unfortunately for Shirogase, this was all part of Adonis's plan. Adonis, having prepared for this moment, manages to push back just in time and tells Shirogase that he underestimated him. Adonis reveals that it was, in fact, him who was underestimated. Surprisingly, Doroka appears from behind Shirogase at Adonis's command. Adonis instructs her to unleash the witch's vengeance upon the humans. Doroka follows the command and plunges her sword into both of Shirogase's legs. Adonis is pleased, but to everyone's surprise, Shirogase doesn't seem hurt at all. He tells Doroka that she should have aimed for his head or, even better, his heart. In a quick response, Adonis rushes to save Doroka. However, things take a turn for the worse as Shirogase sends both Adonis and Doroka flying with a powerful punch. Doroka is in really bad shape from just that one punch, and Shirogase scolds her for ruining her surprise attack. He credits them for being perfectly coordinated but states that it just wasn't enough. Unfortunately for Shirogase, he underestimates them again, as he is captured by the energy ribbons from earlier. Adonis tells Shirogase not to bother begging for his life, emphasizing that he has never been the type to show mercy. Adonis starts to strangle Shirogase, intending to end the fight. However, Shirogase surprises him by using some hidden hands to grab Adonis. These hands pin Adonis against a wall, which is a big problem because if Adonis doesn't keep riding, his spell will vanish. Adonis demands to be let go, but Shirogase insists that Adonis should release him first. Doroka realizes that things are falling apart and recalls her decision not to let Adonis die. She encourages herself to stop hesitating and get ready to do something useful. Meanwhile, Shirogase is preparing something, so Adonis warns Doroka to watch her back and duck. Unfortunately, Doroka has a slow reaction time, and one of Shirogase's hands grabs onto her, sending her flying into the sky. Adonis dislikes how Doroka always needs to be saved, motivating him to push harder. However, Shirogase reveals more hands waiting and pins Adonis to the ground. Adonis's pen is now out of reach, and Shirogase easily breaks free from the energy ribbons. Things couldn't get any worse as Adonis is pinned, and Shirogase is free. Adonis becomes horrified when he realizes Shirogase's plan. Shirogase signals to his robot hands to shove fingers into Doroka's eyes. Adonis tries desperately to stop him, and Doroka, aware of the impending attack, thanks Adonis for everything. Understanding that she won't recover from such an attack, Doroka expresses gratitude for Adonis staying by her side throughout their journey. A flashback shows the time they spent together, and Doroka's only wish now is that they could have seen more sights together. However, Shirogase remains indifferent and tells her that this will be the last time she sees anything. Adonis struggles, but there's no hope of breaking free. Doroka looks at him one last time, and Adonis desperately tries to call out to her. Unfortunately, she can't hear anything at this point, and Doroka can only cry as the robots pierce right through her eyes. The story continues as Doroka's eyes are being popped out, and Adonis is reminded of the moment when he couldn't do anything for Chloe. Shirogase asks Adonis if he's experiencing deja vu witnessing this. Adonis becomes angry and dispels his meta spell to free himself from Shirogase's hummingbirds. The hummingbirds drop Doroka on the ground, prompting Adonis to rush to check on her. Adonis asks Doroka to hang in there, and she tells him that she can't see anymore. Concerned about her well-being, Adonis wonders what he should do. Doroka reassures him, saying that she's okay and asks Adonis to run, promising to catch up later. Annoyed, Adonis asks her to be quiet, and Shirogase states that he has her eyeballs, finding the situation amusing. He asks Adonis to laugh, but Adonis demands that he give Doroka's eyes back and fix her. Shirogase plays with her eyeballs and crushes them, urging Adonis to come fight him. Adonis, angered by Shirogase's actions, tries to fight him barehanded, but he can't catch Shirogase, who kicks him. Adonis grabs his leg, throws him, and wonders if he is still as weak as he was back then. He questions if nothing has changed since that time. Shirogase attempts to attack Adonis with his hummingbirds, but Adonis uses his magic to repel the attack back to him. However, Shirogase dodges it with the help of one of his hummingbirds after the smoke from the blast clears up. Shirogase notices that Adonis and Doroka are nowhere to be seen. We then discover that Adonis is hiding in one of the crumbled buildings. He informs Doroka that he is going to stop her bleeding and asks her to bear with it for a moment. Doroka expresses trust in Adonis, and he proceeds to use the heat from one of the hummingbirds to seal her eye holes and stop the bleeding. Grateful, Doroka thanks Adonis, and he urges her not to speak. Doroka reflects on how great it would have been if they could live ordinary lives in the same town. She envisions going to school together and doing ordinary things, pondering why things turned out this way. Wondering where she went wrong, Doroka then faints. Adonis realizes that she is still alive and requests her not to say the same things he did. He can't believe that he couldn't protect a single girl, and thinks this is not okay. Meanwhile, Shirosagi is searching for Adonis, and Adonis decides to face him using a giant. Charmy warns Shirosagi that this is the same technique Adonis used to destroy the capital, and advises him to be careful as it's highly destructive. The giant attacks Shirosagi, but he manages to dodge the powerful assault. Adonis decides to confront Shirosagi and taunts him by asking to call Doroka queen before mentioning his plan to blind her as payback. Shirosagi becomes angry upon hearing this, leading to an intense aerial battle. Using his hummingbirds, Shirosagi destroys the giant Adonis summoned and overpowers him. Walking on air with the assistance of his hummingbirds, Shirosagi questions if this is the extent of Adonis's abilities. Undeterred, Adonis equips his meta once more and attempts to attack Shirosagi. However, Shirosagi stops the attack using his hummingbirds. Adonis tries another spell, but Shirosagi kicks him, highlighting the weakness of Adonis's magic, a delay between writing and activation. Shirosagi dismisses Adonis's magic as pseudo, and suggests that Adonis should blame himself for being born human. In a plea, Adonis asks Shirosagi to fix Doroka's eye, but Shirosagi refuses and retaliates by attacking Adonis with a giant hand made of hummingbirds. Meanwhile, Doroka, amidst the rubble of the destroyed giant, searches for Adonis. Unable to see clearly, she stumbles and falls, feeling hopeless about finding Adonis in this condition. Seizing the opportunity, Shirosagi mimics Adonis's voice to call out to Doroka. Believing it to be Adonis, Doroka asks if he is alright. However, Shirosagi switches to his own voice, revealing the deception. Confused, Doroka questions his identity and inquires about Adonis's well-being. It becomes apparent that Shirosagi is holding Adonis by his hair. Adonis urges Doroka to run away, but Shirosagi throws him aside and proceeds to beat him up with his hummingbirds. Hearing the distressing sounds of Adonis being attacked, Doroka is left wondering about the unfolding events. Shirosagi then captures Doroka and punches her. He expresses annoyance when she uses the queen's voice to address him and finds satisfaction in having changed her face. Shirosagi then talks about how he met the queen by chance, but as he realized that fate had a plan, he became a slave to love. He felt immense joy that he wanted to share with the world. According to him, it was like the moment of his destiny arriving. He claims that the world doesn't need two witches alike, and Adonis's death is a predetermined harmony. Doroka expresses confusion, stating that she doesn't understand what he's saying. However, she recognizes witches as supposed enemies of humanity. She pleads with Shirosagi to leave Adonis alone. Doroka reveals that she witnessed the chaos when the city was being destroyed and knows about the people fleeing. She acknowledges that such destruction happened because humans initiated witch hunts. Doroka initially wanted to end the conflict, believing that revenge wasn't the solution. She aimed to stop the fighting and thought that forgiveness was essential. However, the recent events have shaken her beliefs. Witnessing the harm inflicted by humans, she questions whether forgiveness is still warranted. Doroka, once certain that revenge was wrong, now finds herself uncertain about the morality of forgiving humans considering their actions against her. Shirosagi kicks Doroka, showing that he doesn't care about what she has to say. He expresses his sole interest in Adonis's head. In response, Doroka explains that she only asked Shirosagi to stop Adonis. Shirosagi, unfazed, urges Doroka to cast a love spell on him. He offers to be her marionette, willing to be controlled if it allows him to move freely. He emphasizes that if Doroka refuses, both of them will face death. Shirosagi further irritates the situation by kicking Doroka and insisting that she not waste his time trying to fight back. He then proceeds to behead Adonis. Despite the grim circumstances, Doroka agrees to Adonis's request and apologizes for having to use her magic on him in this way. A beam of light emanates from Adonis, and he retaliates by punching Shirosagi. In the midst of this clash, Doroka's love spell takes effect, making Adonis see her memories. The memories reveal the harsh treatment Doroka faced from other witches. They made fun of her magic, deeming it obscene because it allowed her to control human nails. The witches questioned why anyone would want to control humans and demanded that Doroka keep her magic away from them. They warned her not to disclose her abilities to humans, as it might lead people to think that other witches were similar to her. Doroka apologized to them, acknowledging the perceived obscenity of her magic. Adonis notices that even Ophelia, another witch, echoed the same sentiments about Doroka's magic. Ophelia considered Doroka's magic impure and vulgar, deeming her a stain on witchkind. Shirasagi kicks Doroka, making her feel like she's seen as a vulgar witch. This prompts Doroka to believe that she needs to transform into a better, more virtuous witch. Adonis understands Doroka's desire for purity, acknowledging that she tends to worry too much. He reassures her, encouraging Doroka to use him without any reservations. Adonis emphasizes that he won't fall in love with her just because of a spell. Doroka casts her love spell, Nightfall, on Adonis. She informs him that he is now free from the constraints of gravity, and nothing can stop him. Adonis's wounds heal, and his bones mend, showcasing the limitless power of his magic. Shirasagi is astonished that the love spell has such extraordinary effects. Doroka asserts that no one can defeat Adonis now. Sensing the impending threat, Shirasagi attempts to flee, but Adonis strikes him with a magical blade, causing significant injury. The tables have turned, and Adonis, empowered by the love spell, emerges as a formidable force against Shirasagi. We then see Shirasagi attempts to escape, but Adonis easily catches up to him. Shirasagi realizes that Doroka is boosting Adonis's magical strength through suggestion. Adonis, empowered by Doroka's influence, attacks Shirasagi. Shirasagi observes that not only has Adonis's magical strength increased, but his overall prowess seems heightened. Adonis, fueled by a sense of vengeance, uses his brute force to systematically dismantle one of Shirasaga's arms. He declares punishment for the hands responsible for harming his princess. Adonis proceeds to tear apart one of Shirasaga's legs, emphasizing the perceived defilement. Despite Shirasaga's pleas to wait, Adonis remains relentless. Employing his written-style summoning magic, Adonis promises to leave nothing of Shirasagi, not even his bones. He unleashes a large-scale spell known as the Ritual of Ruin. Doroka notices the onset of snowfall, and Adonis reveals that Khlo once used this spell to end a 100-year drought. He had promised Khlo that he would only use the spell to protect others. Adonis casts the magic, and Doroka realizes its destructive potential. Shirasagi attempts to counter with his hummingbirds, but Adonis's spell freezes and destroys them. Panicking, Shirasagi implores Doroka to make Adonis stop, expressing concern about their impending demise. Doroka reassures Shirasagi, explaining that Adonis won't freeze as he is surrounded by scorching flames. In disbelief, Shirasagi questions how Doroka's suggestion led to the initiation of a fire. Determined to retaliate, Shirasagi attempts to attack Adonis. However, his hands freeze mid-attack, rendering him immobile. Adonis's spell fully activates, causing Shirasagi to freeze gradually. Panicking, Shirasagi realizes that this wasn't the intended outcome. Charmy, using her drone, advises Shirasagi to escape, but he finds himself frozen in place, unable to flee. Adonis, with unwavering determination, destroys the drone, leaving Shirasagi helpless in the face of the unfolding magical onslaught. The scene shifts to the wastelands, where the inhabitants suddenly feel a cold breeze. Punch, one of the residents, notices a blizzard approaching and instructs others to seek shelter. Confused by the unexpected weather, they huddle together while the blizzard envelops the entire area. Meanwhile, at the intelligence department, Charmy discovers that they've lost visual contact with their drone, making it impossible to monitor the ongoing fight. Meteorological satellites detect a sudden temperature drop, and they lose vital signs from Shirasagi. Unable to confirm his status, Charmy switches to satellite images, revealing a widespread blizzard on Earth. Puzzled by these events, Charmy wonders about the situation. Oz joins her, acknowledging the National Security Bureau's struggle with Adonis. He realizes that taking down the witch's apprentice won't be an easy task. In the snow-covered wastelands, the residents express surprise at the unusual cold, stating that it never snows in their region. Punch, concerned about Adonis and Doroka, speculates on their well-being. Meanwhile, Adonis and Doroka are shown hugging each other. The spirit of Khlo appears and uses magic to dispel the blizzard, fulfilling Adonis's promise to only use magic for protection. Khlo departs, and Doroka regains consciousness, realizing she's wearing protective armor. She wonders if Adonis shielded her. Adonis affectionately calls her princess, and Doroka observes that the love spell has affected him. She dispels the spell, checks Adonis's heartbeat, and is relieved to find him alive. Shirasagi concedes defeat, acknowledging the resemblance between Adonis and the young queen. He requests Doroka to inform the queen that he failed to acquire the incarnation, but gave his best effort. As Shirasagi withers along with the ice entrapment, he muses about a different world where he could be together with the queen. Doroka notices Adonis waking up and learns of his intention to fix her eyes. The queen is then seen going for a morning jog in the capital of Rydia. The citizens are surprised and excited to see her, trying to catch a glimpse wherever she goes. Even the news captures her morning jog. After the jog, Queen Dortha returns to the palace, wishing the citizens a good morning. A soldier expresses concern, advising her not to go out alone. But Dortha reassures him, believing she is loved by everyone. She asks about the response from the crow, expressing impatience. The soldier promises to send a message, conveying Dortha's warning of declaring war if her request is ignored. The scene shifts to various cities around the world, referred to as crowns. The narrative then cuts to Adonis offering a blanket to Doroka due to the cold. Doroka expresses gratitude, but Adonis insists there's no need for thanks as the cold is his fault. Doroka acknowledges this and apologizes for casting the love spell on him. She confesses using the spell to redirect his feelings for Chloe toward herself. Adonis reassures her, mentioning it was his idea, recognizing Shirasaga's strength. He takes responsibility for underestimating Shirasaga's power, and when Doroka tries to say something, Adonis interrupts, asking her to lift her bangs. Doroka worries if her eyes look bad, and Adonis admits responsibility for that too. Doroka apologizes, and Adonis playfully remarks that she has said sorry 15 times, realizing she is a bit clumsy, easily frightened, and thinks she's a hindrance. Doroka finds this a bit mean. Adonis acknowledges that despite everything, he believes in Doroka's genuine kindness. He decides to take back calling her a hypocrite, and asks her to share that kindness with him. Adonis advises Doroka that she'll face challenges if she doesn't become stronger, then proceeds to use bandages to conceal her injured eyes. Doroka feels like Adonis is holding her, but he playfully hits her, reminding her not to get ahead of herself. Adonis asserts that Khlo is the only one for him, emphasizing that Doroka's love spell had no effect on him. Realizing there's no reason to stay, Adonis suggests they leave once they've packed their things. They proceed to pack and head elsewhere. Along the way, Doroka slips, prompting Adonis to hold her hand for support, recalling advice from a dumb witch who told him they should support each other. Doroka agrees, and they continue their journey. Meanwhile, Yuki awakens from her long slumber as a cyborg, determined to kill Adonis and avenge her brother. On the journey, Doroka tells Adonis that she now understands revenge isn't wrong, a sentiment Adonis agrees with wholeheartedly. This brings an end to our season 1 of this anime.